Little record button here. Oh. Okay, we're good there. We're gonna go over here and we're set. All right. Welcome to the Assist Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Schwartz, and we are back after taking a quarantine hiatus while I finished the semester and figured out my life and figured out a way to do these with my family not bothering me. So here we are. The NFL draft happened over the weekend, which was very important and usually a very sad day for people like me, Detroit fans, because they usually don't pick the right people. But this year, I feel pretty good. Joining me is a fan who also feels that way, being a Cleveland Brown fan most years, is JJ Conklin, or should I say essential worker JJ Conklin during these times. JJ, how are you?
I'm not too bad. And by the way, I would say every day I'm a Cleveland Browns fan. And it's just most years that I'm disappointed by the draft selections. Not every year, right after the draft. Sometimes it's like halfway through the season when I realize that none of our guys in the first 3 rounds are starting or are doing anything worth starting. But this year I think they did pretty good, so I'm happy.
There we go. You know, English was never my strong suit in school, so thank you.
Hey,
for
I'm an engineer. So don't even talk about English not being your strong suit.
I do like what the Browns did this year, though, I will say.
Yeah, they did a good job.
I will say that. Okay, where would you like to start?
Well, I'd like to start with a question. I don't typically watch the draft too in depth because I find it to be pretty boring.
Right.
I watched it a little more in depth this year, and after one of the rounds or a couple of the rounds, they had extra picks that weren't included in like the 32 team lineup. I think they were called consolation picks.
Yeah, the compensatory picks.
Compensatory picks, yeah. What are those? Why do teams get them? What teams get them?
So it's for like when people, since the draft happens after free agency, that when teams lose players through free agency, the pick correlates to like the contract amount that they sign, the money amount that they sign. So it's supposed to compensate teams who lose their free agents to other teams in that way. And they start in the 3rd round and obviously go out throughout the draft, with more and more being given in the 6th and 7th rounds and stuff like that due to the contract amount that they specify to. So that's what they are. It's just another like balancing act that they use through the draft. You get more picks if you lose more players and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I like that. That's pretty cool.
So I don't know. There's a
sense.
rule. It's tied to like how much money you spend in free agency too. So if you spend a bunch of money, you can't also get picks. I don't know that part of it, like how much you're allowed to spend before you can't get compensatory picks. But that plays into it too. But yeah, that's basically what it is.
That makes sense. Thank you for explaining that. I mean, I could have looked it up on Google, but I think that maybe some of the fans were confused too.
Yeah. No, it's a weird thing. Yeah, it's a weird thing that I wasn't sure about. Okay. So
you want to start with the best or the worst?
Oh, I don't know. I mean,
we'll start with the good.
Okay.
High note.
So I love how each year it seems like the people who are already good, just even though they have late picks, are always well applauded anyway, because, you know, they have late picks. It's almost like they just don't mess them up, you know, and they're good teams because they draft well. But it's just wild to me how teams, like, I have a couple teams highlighted here, like Baltimore, San Francisco, even Dallas, who didn't have too late of a pick last year, but it's not like Dallas has ever been tanking recently. All I felt like had really good drafts this year. So which one of those would you like to start with?
I mean, we'll start with the Ravens. I think as a team that did very well last year, they just added on to it with good value picks. I mean, it's not like they traded up for a top 5 pick or they didn't even trade up for a first-round pick, but they still, they had a first round. They didn't trade up for another first-round pick, but they still had a very good draft.
Yeah, I mean, the 28th pick, I mean, you're taking Patrick Queen, who I think, the mock drafts sometimes are pretty ridiculous and give us different expectations than what should actually happen, you know? But for every mock draft edition I read, the Ravens were linked with either it was Patrick Queen or the Oklahoma linebacker Kenneth Murray, whichever one they're going to take. And it turns out that the Chargers trade up to get Kenneth Murray earlier in the first round, and there they are. The Ravens are sitting there, and they're just happy to take Patrick Queen out of LSU, which I think is an excellent pick from them. It's one of those picks too where you go, and I think similar to J.K. Dobbins from Ohio State, their second round pick, you go, oh, well now he's going to be really good, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. You're not drafting them into a crapshoot system. You're drafting them into a system that's already good. They were in a system that was good at college. LSU and Ohio State, their first two picks are already two guys that played on two of the best teams in the country. And the Ravens were one of the best teams in the NFL last year, so they already know how to function in a well-oiled machine.
Right. And obviously with Lamar Jackson, and, they're keeping Mark Ingram, who was very potent last year as well. And now they bring in J.K. Dobbins there. The offense is going to get even better. And then going into their third round, too, 4 players picked in the third round, which is a spot which is common, I believe, for types of Pro Bowl players and such like that. Russell Wilson being picked there. I'm going to butcher this guy's name, but the Texas A&M defensive tackle, Justin Madubike. I really liked him as a player. I thought he was really good, and he slipped all the way to the third round. I thought he'd go in the second round for sure. So, once again, Baltimore picks him up. You're like, yep, good on there. Devin Duvernay from Texas. I remember watching him against LSU, and he just balled out. And, I don't know what number he was, the wide receiver, but having 6 wide receivers go in the first round, many of them very talented. And, Duvernay, unfortunate to graduate at this time, but comes out and, the Ravens are going to get a very quality player out of here. And, of course, being a Michigan fan and watching Malik Harrison over the past couple of years, another linebacker, terrorize Detroit. Getting my misery mixed up. Michigan quarterbacks and running backs throughout the years. Malik Harrison's going to be great in a Raven jersey. Unfortunately for you, as Cleveland now has to play all these great selections the first 2 times a year. There's just this draft for them was just the first 3 rounds. I'm looking through each player. I'm like, I don't argue with any of these selections or any of the spots they were taken at. Which looking through the rest of the teams, I can't say that for anybody else.
I think that's pretty important when you're drafting and you've only got a limited quantity of drafts. Is you don't want to pick too soon or pick someone in the early first round or early third round who's really a late third round player. You want to trade back and get your most value out of your players. I think the Ravens did a really good job of that. They didn't take anyone way too early or even like arbitrarily early. They were all right on point. So good additions to their team.
And we are going to talk about some teams that do not understand that later on with value. Another team I want to highlight, as I mentioned, San Francisco. They didn't have a lot of picks, having traded a bunch of picks for defensive star players. And, of course, they went to the Super Bowl last year, so cannot argue with their system. But they ended up with 2 first-round picks after trading DeForest Buckner to the Colts, as we talked about previously on this podcast. And they used that pick for Javon Kinlaw, who I love. I love Javon Kinlaw, defensive tackle out of South Carolina. Him and Derek Brown. I remember watching a Derek Brown game. I believe Auburn was playing maybe Georgia. I don't remember. I just remember he had a fumble recovery, and then he was out running like tight ends and wide receivers down the field. Derek Brown was. And he ended up going to the Panthers, which was a great pick for them as well, I think. So, but the point is, Javon Kinlaw is a very similar player in that regard. And then Brandon Ayuk from Arizona State, they lost Emmanuel Sanders in free agency, and Ayuk, I think, is a brilliant pickup for them. And also, of note, that does not show up on the ESPN draft sheet, they traded a 5th-round pick of this year's draft and 2021 third-round pick for Trent Williams because Joe Staley, their longtime left tackle, retired. So the Niners, loading back up.
Yeah, what more can you expect? I'm glad the Browns didn't end up with Trent Williams because I know he's great, but health always concerns me when it comes to linemen in particular, but NFL players, because once you get injured once or twice, more likely to get injured. So I'm not too keen on the Trent Williams trade, but I think they got decent value for a potentially very effective tackle to go with their system. They drafted another tackle, Colton Mikovits from West Virginia, and whether he starts or he's a backup for Trent Williams, I think that just having a veteran like that in the locker room to help mentor the younger guys, the rookies, is invaluable. You can't put a price tag on that. So in that sense, I think that's a good trade. I'd take that.
Very true. We'll have to see what happens with the Trent Williams stuff after him sitting out the whole year for the Washington Redskins, hoping for a trade. So NFC West should be interesting, with Arizona making some moves, and obviously what Seattle does with Jadeveon Clowney later on. I wanted to talk about the Cowboys as well, because nobody ever talks about the Cowboys enough.
America's team?
That's right. I just want to know, how did CeeDee Lamb drop to 17?
I don't know. I had some guys at work that were moaning about how he was so overrated and he's too small for the NFL.
What?
I don't know. I wasn't.
Those shouldn't be your friends.
Coworkers would call them.
There you go.
But when Jerry Jones was dancing up a storm, I thought he was getting ready to make a TikTok after he made the call, put in CeeDee Lamb. I don't think the Cowboys were on the clock for more than 15 seconds before they got their pick in, because they, like you said, I don't know how he dropped to 17. I guess teams weren't too keen on wide receivers early in the first round, so
yeah, which makes no sense to me, because I truly thought, I was looking at the draft. I did a mock draft for a UCF IM T-shirt champion, hopefully, shirt, and I lost. I did not win. So clearly I'm either dumb or the teams are dumb. But I thought for sure, we'll talk about this because I have some of these teams on my list. But, looking at the draft right now, 11 is the Jets. Even the Jaguars at 9 I could have seen taking a receiver. I thought the Jets possibly could, and then they went with tackle, which I think is smart. They went with Mickey Becton from Louisville. And then Las Vegas, I thought for sure would take a wide receiver, and they did. It's not the one I thought they would. I thought the Niners were a good choice for a wide receiver, and they did end up taking one later in the first round. Broncos obviously also took one. And so I guess it makes sense, but I was just shocked that, and also that no one traded up. I mean, maybe the Falcons are just stupid, and they're on my list of bad drafts, and we just cover them here. A.J. Terrell going 16 is ludicrous. from Clemson as a cornerback, because this year's crop of corners, you have Okudah, who went to the Lions, and that was widely celebrated, I guess, as a pick. It makes a lot of sense. They lost Darius Slay in the offseason to the Eagles. And then C.J. Henderson was after him, and then there was just a drop, right? And Henderson, I think, was mocked to the Cowboys at certain points, but he went early to the Jaguars. So, I mean, the Cowboys could have done what the Atlanta Falcons did and take A.J. Terrell, Clemson cornerback, who I thought maybe would go at the end of the first round, maybe the second round, and then what the Raiders did later on with Damon Arnett from Ohio State. I mean, I'm not trying to disrespect any Ohio State players, although I would love to disrespect all of them based on my Michigan fandom, but Damon Arnett has no business going in the first round. No business at all. And
yeah,
the fact that
in the top 5, he's not in the top 5 corners in this draft class, let alone, was that the second corner drafted for Damon Arnett?
Yeah, so I mean, I didn't understand that. So I do have to applaud. I've certainly in friends' conversations and stuff hammered Jerry Jones a little hard for some of the decisions he makes, and I think his game with Dak right now is ridiculous. But him just, could fill a need. Yeah, maybe he could have gotten the corner and reached for one severely. But him just going with the best player available and say, we're just going to score 50 points a game with CeeDee Lamb, I think is a smart choice as well. And they also did pick Reggie Robinson, the second out of Tulsa, a corner. And also Trayvon Diggs from Alabama with their second round pick, who I thought could have gone in the first round, the brother of Stephon Diggs. And, at the second round, I think middle second round, pretty good value as well. So I got to say, hats off to the Cowboys. They did really well. I also think Neville Gallimore from Oklahoma, the defensive tackle, can be an instant impact starter there on the defensive line. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think they didn't overthink it. They just said, wow, CeeDee Lamb, really good receiver, and you could always use another good receiver. So I think they're going to score a lot of points as long as Dak stays healthy and stays under contract and doesn't sit out a season for contractual reasons. But even some of their later round picks, Tyler Biadasz from Wisconsin. I don't know that he'll be an immediate impact starter, but I think he's somebody that can compete for a spot and be a starter next year, maybe, whatever they need for him. Offensive line, you can never go wrong with drafting some young, hungry offensive linemen.
Right, especially from Wisconsin or Iowa. Those guys usually pan out.
And you can never go, well, I guess you can, but difficult to go wrong with a 7th round quarterback pick, so might be the next Tom Brady, you know?
Never know. Teams have been telling themselves that for 20 years. So
maybe 18 years.
You're right. My bad. Math is not my strong suit either.
What is your strong suit?
You know, doing suboptimal podcasts, I think. Doing bad podcasts. Yeah, sports. There we go. So that can segue into the Raiders, who I initially wrote on my note sheet here that the Oakland Raiders, and I forgot that this is their year. They're moving to Vegas. So
same thing.
Basically.
That's the difference between Oakland and Las Vegas.
A lot of things.
Okay.
Dennis Rodman wasn't asking. It's true. Dennis Rodman wasn't asking for a 48-hour vacation to Oakland. Put it that way.
You know, I haven't watched any of the documentary yet, but I've been on social media enough to know that Dennis Rodman was wild in Las Vegas, and MJ was looking for him.
Yeah, people want a documentary about that, but yeah, it's crazy. We're going to be talking about The Last Dance soon on The Assist. I've got something in the works, so well, stay tuned for that, NBA fans who have made it this far through this recap. So,
anyways,
another team I want to discuss, kind of mooching off the Cowboys stuff there, is Las Vegas. So I want to preface this by saying I like Henry Ruggs, okay? I think he's a good wide receiver, from Alabama. Yeah. This guy who ran a 4.27 at the combine. I think he's a good receiver. I figured he would go 15th to Denver. The reason I had him going 15th to Denver is because I figured that Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb would be off the board before him. So, going off what you were saying about trading down earlier and understanding value, why wouldn't John Gruden trade down with somebody when I think most teams, I could tell you Denver was elated when Jerry Jeudy fell into their lap. So, to me, you don't know this yet because, well, the Raiders don't know it yet that receivers are going to fall. But you could surmise to drop back, a little bit and try to pick up some extra picks there for Henry Ruggs if that's your guy, because most draft evaluators had him as the third wide receiver, and then probably the whole entire league did, because I think that's what it is. I mean, I don't necessarily hate the pick that much, but I just think it's a misunderstanding of value and what they could do. John Gruden, and I already said what I said about the Damon Arnett pick. So yeah,
first overall wide receiver pick, not Henry Ruggs the third, but it might work out for him. So we'll see. I don't know. Maybe they could have taken him with their 19th if they didn't want to take him with their 12th. Like, they could have done something a little different, but
yeah,
drafting anyone from Alabama might pay off.
That's true. That is true.
Go ahead.
I would say I was looking back and watching an old Alabama game when I was running, and it was 2008, and they were playing Florida in the SEC championship game. And like, who's that massive wide receiver? And I look and it's like, oh, it's Julio Jones in his college prime. This is crazy. And then they do the ticker or whatever, and they're like, Julio Jones freshman. I'm like, oh my God, he is a monster.
That's how they roll. Roll Tide.
And who was throwing him the ball? John Parker Wilson. Back before Alabama produced quarterbacks.
I ask again, who was throwing him the ball?
Yep, exactly. Just some white guy. That is the answer.
So why did Las Vegas draft 3 wide receivers?
I don't know. So what JJ's referring to is that they picked up Lynn Bowden Jr. from Kentucky and Brian Edwards from South Carolina in the third round with back-to-back picks.
Yep.
John Gruden's a treat to have back in the NFL, I gotta say. So I guess Brian Edwards is a big body receiver. I want to say he's, off the top of my head, 6'3", something like that. Oh, look at that analysis. 6'3", right there, 210. Yeah, so I thought that pick was pretty good value. Understand a different type of receiver than Henry Ruggs. So I guess the answer is that all three of them are very different because Lynn Bowden Jr., in fact, at Kentucky, ended up playing quarterback after their QB got injured. So even here on ESPN, they have him listed as a running back when you click on Lynn Bowden, now that he's on the Raiders. But if you go back, will it show me the college stats? No, it will. Oh, wait, here we go. There we go. Okay. So this last year, 2018, he had 750 receiving yards, and then this year he only had 350 because he ended up rushing for 1,500 yards and 13 touchdowns as a quarterback, and completed 47% of his passes, 74 attempts. So I guess with him, you're getting a different type of. He's 6'1", 200 pounds. So Brad Edwards is more of your out and out on the sideline receiver. Whereas Henry Ruggs will probably dominate in the slot based on his speed. And then you have Linbo Jr., who is kind of like a jack of all trades, can kind of do everything. I guess maybe kind of like a Deebo Samuel, since everyone's talking about the next Deebo Samuel from the 49ers, who can do all that stuff.
He's kind of like an all-around athlete that you can put kind of anywhere. Kind of like Terrell Pryor when he came to the NFL and he played quarterback at first, but he went to wide receiver and bounced around. Hopefully, Lynn Bowden Jr. doesn't bounce around, but nonetheless.
So I guess, Vegas picking 3 wide receivers isn't that ridiculous because their skill sets don't overlap. But also, it's not like Las Vegas was a good team, at that point, why not take a flyer on Jacob Eason or someone like that when you have Derek Carr in a lame duck year when you can get rid of him? But,
or kind of diversify your draft picks maybe, but whatever.
Yeah. No, you know what? They're just 3 rookie wide receivers.
3 rookie wide receivers and 3 rookie defensive backs and an offensive lineman. That's what they drafted.
What could go wrong? They're all Gruden grinders. That's what's important.
I guess.
I'd rather take Gruden. I'd rather take Gruden to the Monday Night booth though than Booger. So I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't make fun of him that much.
Maybe he can do both. He can coach on Sundays and be in the booth on Mondays.
But which one's the fastest wide receiver? And get that one. Doesn't matter what pick it is. Just get me him. Okay.
If they can outrun the cornerbacks.
That's true. Okay. Another person I have the pleasure of making fun of. Matt LaFleur, the head coach of the Green Bay Packers. So as a Lions fan, we are in the division with the Packers, as people may know. And the Packers have continually kicked our ass for many years, and it's very annoying.
Yes. Yep.
So even though the Lions had a total of 3 wins last year, I do take pleasure in all this because it is kind of hilarious. So the first thing I want to say, well, obviously let's get the facts first, and I can ask you your opinion. Then I'll share mine because I think there's been some news reports that have come out about this that is ludicrous. Okay, so the Packers with their 26th overall selection, and let me look at the first round just so have it pulled up. So the Packers pre the draft have been rumored to get a lot of talent in the wide receiving core with a loaded draft for wide receivers, right? We've talked about that. Everyone knows that has picked up a football in the past 10 years that this draft had a lot of wide receivers. So the Packers, after trotting out a guy named Alan Lazard last year in their wide receiving core, with a quarterback who is 36, who is still pretty good, I'd say. The B plus of his. He's not elite.
He's not Drew or Tom, but he's good.
Yeah, he's right over. If he's not at the peak of his powers, but he's pretty damn close. So, common wisdom would surmise that you should take wide receiver with this loaded draft class, back half of the first round. Makes a lot of sense. And when the Packers were trading up, it seemed like they were doing just that. someone like T. Higgins or Michael Pittman was still on the board. Denzel Mims, perhaps. And then they took Jordan Love, quarterback at Utah State.
Yep. I don't know why. He's old. He needs either protection or he needs weapons to utilize. So why would you not get one of those two in the first round or even in the first 2 days?
Yeah, they didn't draft a wide receiver at all.
Right. I would say that they drafted a pseudo weapon and pseudo protection, so it's kind of like the best of both worlds, in Josiah DeGuara from the University of Cincinnati. Go Bearcats.
Okay.
But I will admit that he was probably not the best available option in terms of metrics and rankings and gradings, but Travis Kelce was also drafted in the third round as a tight end from the University of Cincinnati, and now he's one of the, if not the best tight end in the league. So I think this was probably just forward thinking on their part, and Josiah DeGuara is going to be a great weapon for Aaron Rodgers this year, or Jordan Love, but hopefully Aaron Rodgers. And I guess taking a running back in the second round, A.J. Dillon from Boston College, isn't as bad as you might think, because if the running game is strong, if they get that going, then they don't need to rely on Aaron Rodgers for every single play or every other play. In fact, instead of throwing Hail Marys, maybe he'll just need to throw some post routes or some slants at the end of the game when there's 7 seconds left. Maybe they'll be a little closer.
I'm going to isolate that Josiah clip so we can promote this in the city of Cincinnati just for boost some numbers on the pod. The thing about A.J. Dillon, though, is, one, he went 5 picks after J.K. Dobbins. That's rough. That's rough. Second thing is they have Aaron Jones.
Well, yeah, you need more than one running back. The Browns have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt.
The larger point I wanted to say about the Packers, though, is a lot of people now are posting things about how this mirrors Aaron's own situation with the Packers and Brett Favre. I forgot what draft it was, 2005, 2006? I think it's 2005. The draft where Alex Smith went first overall, and of course Aaron always talks about because Aaron can't get over his own fall in the draft. The problem with that is that Brett Favre, as everyone remembers, would retire and then unretire after every year. So in a way, Green Bay was tired of that. And according to my notes, Aaron Rodgers has never talked about retiring. Am I right on that? So okay. So that is one inconsistency. The second thing is that Aaron Rodgers is moody. Everybody knows this. Everybody who's done playing with Aaron Rodgers says this. And if you look it up, it's there. Trust me, it's there. That Aaron Rodgers, is pretty moody. Obviously, this was also cited with his head coach last year with Matt LaFleur, having some issues at the beginning with the offense. And they worked it out and they had to make it in the playoffs. But don't draft a quarterback in the first round when you know your player is moody and whiny, because Aaron Rodgers is still your best player. He is still your best chance to win. And frankly, if you look at the division, the NFC North, Detroit sucks. I'm sorry for myself. They do. The Bears have Mitchell Trubisky and Nick Foles pass. And then the Vikings right now, pretty good, Kirk Cousins, whatever else. But they're right up against the cap and still have to release a ton of people to get cap compliant and just had 15 draft picks. Not all of them will make the roster. However, that's a lot of rookies trying to compete. So the division is Green Bay's for the taking. And you're telling me that they really thought instead of T. Higgins, man who starred in the national championship game 2 years ago when Clemson smacked Alabama around like they were a little child, that he is not a better fit for your team right now than Jordan Love, the Utah State quarterback who threw 17 interceptions and led the whole league, or not the whole league, the whole college football, FBS, whatever you want to say, in interceptions. Because that's true. Look it up. You're telling me that's what happened? It's ludicrous.
Yeah, I agree. But if we're looking at the Tom Brady's and the Travis Kelce drafting anomalies, do you know who the last quarterback to lead college football in interceptions his last year of playing and get drafted in the first round is?
Ooh, can you give me a year?
He's old.
Okay, so he's still in the league.
No.
Okay.
Not. I think he's in the Hall of Fame.
It's not Favre, is it?
No, it's not Favre.
Okay.
His career ended in 2000.
Is it Joe Montana?
And no.
Okay.
He played on the other coast.
Yeah, Phil Simms?
No.
Okay, yeah, now the listeners are getting annoyed.
Dan Marino.
Oh.
So if he turns out like Dan Marino, then you know what? That's all right.
I'm going to say it now. Jordan Love will not be Dan Marino. Put it that way. We'll go with that. The other thing I want to say about the Rodgers difference between this and Jordan Love is that Aaron Rodgers was rumored. If you look back at the pieces, he ended up going 24th to the Packers, and Alex Smith went number 1, and they were the first 2 quarterbacks. But if you go back and read some stuff, which I have, nerd, whatever, quarantine, there was talk of Aaron going number 1 overall to San Francisco, having gone to the University of California and stuff. So it's not as if he was a bad prospect. It just ended up being the quarterbacks weren't needed. And I do think, going back 15 years now, it is different with the way we value quarterbacks now and people trading up for them and such like that. Jordan Love went 4th in a draft in which I think the top 2 quarterbacks are definite hits as long as Tua's hip holds up. And that even the third quarterback, I mean, I don't fault the Chargers per se. That's why they don't make my list of bad drafts. But I mean, I'm not too enamored of Herbert either. The people who were saying Herbert should go before Tua are nuts and should have any of their NFL credentials revoked. And I don't even care if Herbert ends up being better because Tua gets injured. That's just a fact. Like, you can't...
You got to take the risk on Tua. You can't... You got to take the risk.
Agreed. I mean, Tua was so good in college. But so that's my point, too, is that Jordan Love, it's not like he is a superstar prospect. There are some doubts about him. Aaron Rodgers was still a very good prospect. It just happened to be bad luck for him. So, it'll be interesting.
Bank account.
That's true. That is very true.
Well, I think, what if you compare it to the Patriots a couple years ago, drafting Jimmy G late in the second round, and then supposedly, arguably, Tom Brady gets him traded elsewhere, sent off because he doesn't want to feel like his legacy or his starting spot is in the balance every single week if he has a bad week or whatever. Do you think there's going to be anything like that? Any power moves pulled by Aaron Rodgers?
All I'm saying I would love it if that happened. If Aaron Rodgers, when he's 45 and can't move anymore, it's like, not 45, that's too long from now. He's 36 right now. So in 3 years, if Rodgers was like, trade this guy, and then he just tanks, Packers are never good again, I would love it. No, I do think that's probably the more apt comparison, though, because Jordan Love should not play this year or next year or the year after that. I'm being too mean to Jordan Love.
Right, but that's why they... I don't know why they drafted him in the first round, but that's why they drafted him or someone at this point so that they could learn the system, learn the league a little bit, maybe trade them, maybe get rid of them. But at least for his sake, he won't. It's better than going to the Browns or the Bengals. They have starting quarterbacks, but it's better than going to some crap team and getting your ass kicked and going 2-14 or maybe 2-15 for a couple years and then leaving the league. I'd rather be a backup than, I guess, I don't have the experience or the wherewithal to know. Maybe you get paid more as a starter who sucks than a backup who might be decent. But I think I'd rather be a backup than a starter on a crap team.
Right. Yeah. So the last team I want to talk about is the Philadelphia Eagles. And I saved them for last because I just wrote down next to their team name interesting question mark, because I don't think it's bad per se, because a lot of people were, I don't want to say slandering Jalen Hurts, because he does have his faults, but I feel like Jalen Hurts got a lot of crap. And do I think the middle of the second round is too early for him? I mean, my jaw might have opened when the Eagles picked him, because I was pretty surprised that they did that.
Right.
And in addition to that, the Jalen Rigger pick from TCU, once again, not a bad player. I mean, a lot of people had him in the first round, but just at 21, I thought I would have bet a lot of money that they were going with Justin Jefferson, and they didn't. And I think that could be a mistake. I don't know. The problem is here, so if we were to literally swap out the Eagles with, let's say the Browns, with the Browns, and they don't have Doug Peterson, whatever, and the Browns make these two picks, I was like, oh, terrible picks. Draft is miserable. They suck. Whatever. But then when you bring in the Eagles and you bring in Doug Peterson after winning a Super Bowl with Nick Foles and everything that happened with that, because people are comparing that to this situation now, and, with the playmaking genius that he is and such, I look at that and I'm like, they must have a plan.
Might work out.
Yeah. I'm like, well, they picked Jalen Hurts for a reason, even though they have a $30 million a year quarterback in Carson Wentz right now. So any other team that didn't have a clear need at quarterback picked Jalen Hurts, I would have been like, all right, whatever, back up. Like if the Steelers picked him, for instance. It's like, yeah, Big Ben's getting old. All right, let's see if this works. But with this, I'm like, all right, they have a plan for Jalen Hurts, and I'm just kind of going to roll with it, I guess. I don't really, and I mean, some of their picks in the later rounds, I like Prince Tega Wanago, the tackle from Auburn in the 6th round, was a good value pickup. So, but I mean, I was just like, we'll see what happens. And I know my Eagles friend, Mata, who texted me, he was so confused, and he was pretty irate when they picked Jalen Hurts. Because, I mean, this team they ended up addressing some wide receiver with 5th and 6th round picks, some smaller school picks, although Boise State, small, sorry, don't mean to do that. We're in the same brotherhood, Boise State.
I don't know about that.
Maybe a group of 5 teams trying to break through.
The AAC is above the rest.
No, I agree with you. I'm just saying
State.
Boise blazed the path that we were on. Can't deny that.
Well, okay. All right. A couple years ago. Yeah.
And then Southern Mississippi does not get that same respect. Sorry to my one listener in Mississippi. But no cornerback this draft class, which surprised me because their corners have been beat up consistently throughout the years as well. But they did trade for Darius Slay, so perhaps that is something to consider and signed him to an extension. So I think it's an interesting class. I don't know. Do you feel any strong way about this crop of Eagles?
Well, have you seen reports that the Eagles are considering a dual quarterback system?
Okay, what does that even mean?
That means like some plays you put in Jalen, some plays you put in Carson.
I feel like, whoops, I started typing dual quarterback system without just typing Jalen Hurts. That was dumb. Okay. I don't know. Okay, let's see.
I mean,
Bleeding Green Nation.
I've seen reports about it, whether or not you have, but I feel like that is not an NFL move, especially not when you have Carson Wentz on a huge contract and Jalen Hurts is a rookie. Like, play Carson Wentz. Same thing that I said about Baker Mayfield when we drafted him in the first round. Did we drafted Baker Mayfield first overall, didn't we, the Browns?
Yes.
Don't play Baker Mayfield, let him learn, let him develop. And then he ended up playing out of necessity because starter got injured, and then he ended up being great. So it worked out for us his rookie season. But I would just say the same thing about Jalen Hurts. Don't play him, let him develop, because rookie quarterbacks oftentimes aren't great. We'll go Lamar Jackson. He didn't not play his rookie year, but he learned a lot. And then his second year, he was really good. So I think in general, I think the draft is average for them. All right. Addresses some needs. Always good to get a lineman. In their 4th round, they got Jack Driscoll from Auburn, offensive lineman, that is, and some secondary in the outside linebacker and safety from Colorado and Clemson. So I think diversity in picks. They got that. I think their wide receiver choice in the first round, Jalen Rager, not the best value.
Agreed.
But otherwise, decent value for their players. So they are what they are.
So I have a quote here. Taysom Hill package on steroids. Interesting. I mean, they're talking about possibly using him as a running back too. So I could see it. I mean, like I said, I figure that they probably have a plan for him, that they saw a lot of stuff in him, like many of us did. I mean, he very productive college player. He's obviously a great leader. He's not, even though he did transfer, he's not going to have an issue sitting on the bench for periods, you know. But you see what Wentz does. So, well, we can monitor that closely. I think your point about rookie quarterbacks, though, is interesting. Having them sit for a bit, because I do feel like sometimes it just depends, you know, because you cited Baker and going to Cleveland. I think Cleveland's improved a lot. I think they have a shot at the playoffs, especially now that it's a 7-seed, 7 playoff, team playoff. I just, you know, going in as number one pick, you know, is supposed to be the savior, and Baker matched Cleveland's personality a lot. I just think it depends on the situation, because when you go into Baker's, you know, coming into Cleveland, like, Cleveland's still pretty bad then, you know? And of course you're bad if you're picking the first pick. So, and then you talk about someone like Kyler Murray, who we would say had a pretty good year last year, but he was sacked 50-something times last year, and Arizona finally got him some help and some tackles in the middle rounds, even though first they went with Isaiah Simmons, the outside linebacker from Clemson. But it's just like, and then you compare that to Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson. Like, those are just better organizations, you know?
Yeah.
Like, the Ravens are one of the most stable organizations around, and the Chiefs, obviously, with Andy Reid being there for a while, had some success, and then finally to that. The interesting one is Deshaun Watson, because you could argue Houston had really good, not really good, but, you know, been successful with for some time, you know, in that division, and Bill O'Brien now, as we've covered before, is setting fire to everything. So I think it's an interesting point. I'm not sure which one's more, because even players like Matthew Stafford, you know, Detroit is still a crappy organization, but I mean, he's had a lot of success in his career as well. So I don't know.
What if you compare it to like Peyton Manning, who set the NFL record for rookie interceptions? I think the league has kind of learned about rookie quarterbacks that you can't just let them loose like that. So I don't know that record is going to be broken anytime soon, because it's almost like a redshirt year. It's an NFL redshirt year. Highly recommend. Yeah. But I guess
poor Josh Rosen.
I guess I would recommend a redshirt NFL year for quarterbacks not drafted in the first round, because if you're drafted in the first round, then you've got skill and there's the expectation to be good. But I would still say that it's not a bad option for a redshirt NFL year for quarterbacks.
It'll be interesting.
Any other skill player or lineman, if you're in the first 3 rounds, don't take a redshirt year. Not that you have that decision, but they should play. What's the worst that can happen?
That's true. I think it'll be interesting to see what the number 6th overall pick of the Chargers, Justin Herbert, does in that scenario, because they do have Tyrod Taylor there to kind of be a stopgap. And personally, I don't know if Herbert's ready. So we'll have to see.
And Tyrod Taylor, interestingly enough, was the Browns starter when Baker was drafted first overall. So, and he got injured, which is why Baker had a chance. So maybe they'll just stick with him until he gets injured. And
then Herbert will stink up the field. I don't think the Chargers had much of a choice in number 6, but still, I don't really like the pick. But that is
all right. I know you said the Eagles were going to be your last team, but I just want to touch on the Browns. I think they did great. I was texting you throughout the draft, specifically the first 2 days, about what I want them to take, what I think they need, and they got JJ Conklin this year in free agency, right tackle to help Baker, veteran. Very good up front. Was happy about that, but we knew we still needed another lineman. So pick, first round, they take Jedrick Wills Jr. from Alabama, which a lot of people had rated best offensive tackle in the draft class. And for him to fall to 10, very thankful, even though he's going to have to change positions. He protected Tua's blind side as a right tackle, but he's going to be protecting Baker Mayfield's blind side as a left tackle. I think he'll be able to accomplish that learning curve. And then I said, we need some defensive help, secondary specifically, so defensive back or linebacker. They take Grant Delpit from LSU, who I think he won the award for the best defensive back in the nation this year, right?
Yes. Well, he might have, because I know he had issues. The knock on him was missing a ton of tackles, but I was going to add later on that I think he was a great value pick in the second round. So
yeah, so second round pick for one of the best safeties in the draft. I'll take it. And then I thought we needed another linebacker. We got a linebacker in the third round. It wasn't our first third round pick, but Jacob Phillips from LSU, inside linebacker. That's what we needed. Also got a defensive tackle, which I didn't think was a need, but I'll take it. We got the tight end who won the award for the best tight end in the league, in the nation, the NCAA, whatever. Harrison Bryant from FAU.
yeah.
And then Donovan Peoples-Jones from Michigan in the sixth round. So I think that the Browns had fantastic values and picks and filled some needs, and I'm really happy about it. Probably the happiest that Browns fans have been in a while with the draft.
Okay, the Jim Thorpe Award was awarded to Grant Delpit, finally.
There it is.
Be careful, though. I mean, DeAndre Baker won it the previous year, and we know what a dumpster fire he was for the Giants. But the year before that was Minka Fitzpatrick, so who knows?
It's like the Madden curse. Comes and goes.
Yeah, it depends. It's like Morris Claiborne won it one year, who we know was a dumpster fire, and then the previous year was Patrick Peterson, so who knows? We'll see. But no, I like the Delpit value. I would say, I know we were joking the final day of the draft about Donovan Peoples-Jones from Michigan, and I like him. I think he's a really good wide receiver, and I think he got lost in the shuffle of everything of this great wide receiver class in the sixth round. And he also provides value in the return game. He had a couple punt return touchdowns for us as well for the Wolverines' his career. So I think he's a great pickup. Either way, hopefully he makes the roster, but I think he's a good play. Harrison Bryant, obviously, tight end, great. And I know Jordan Elliott was linked with the Lions in second or third round as well. So a big defensive tackle from Missouri. So I think overall, very well-rounded draft for the Browns. And I kind of hinted at this earlier. There's a lot of hype around the Browns last year, making the playoffs and such like that. And admittedly, I thought they would make it too. I thought they'd be a 5-6 seed. I didn't think they'd win the division. I also didn't see Lamar Jackson coming, but whatever. Point is that last year's nucleus, I think, was in place, and you got rid of the moron Freddie Kitchens, who I think was the problem, obviously. And I still believe in Baker and all that stuff. I don't think Baker. I saw a tweet. Cleveland Twitter's wild. I also have to say that people don't understand.
Don't tell me it was the one that said, if the Browns win the Super Bowl, Baker is more important than LeBron.
I didn't see that one, but that one's also ludicrous for two reasons.
Yeah, it's a bad take.
They should focus on making the playoffs. Or, in fact, I don't know, maybe winning more than 6 games. And this is coming from a Detroit fan. Everyone, the difference between Detroit and Cleveland, they're very similar cities if you look into the history. The difference is Detroit accepts they're losing and waits until they're actually really good, and until the precipice won't believe it. The Red Wings teams of the 90s, or the Tigers, or the Pistons, and the Bad Boy Pistons. Cleveland just is like, when we win the Super Bowl this year, we won 3 games last year, but when we win this year, and when Kyrie Irving
focus on a winning record.
When Kyrie Irving wins 9 NBA Finals trophies after his one shot that he had, that was super important. Or the Indians, when the Indians, after they made the World Series, come back and whatever, it's it's crazy. You believe too much. The tweet I was going to say anyway was that someone said sleeper picks for the MVP, and Baker was on there, and it's like, bro, okay,
I buy that.
I wonder what his odds are right now on Bovada. I'm gonna look him up. But you know who else was in the tweet though? This is when you know it is. It's just like if anyone follows this account for real advice, it's horrible. You don't know anything. Do you know who else? There were 3 other pictures, and I remember one of them vividly because I just laughed out loud. Philip Rivers.
Well, I'm gonna. Oh. I don't know about that.
I remember, Philip Rivers, just good quarterback, but I remember there was a Thursday night game when they played the Raiders, and I remember Philip Rivers at the end of the game. I'm like, here you go. I got a chance here. And he threw 7 straight incompletions, and the only reason it was 7 was because there was a pass interference call. And then he threw a pick at the end. So I was like, oh my God, that's how they got the first down. So it's hilarious.
Well, I think I'm not buying into the Browns hype this year because I really bought in last year, and then they really let me down. But I'm saying if they don't perform this year, if they don't make the playoffs, then they've got no excuses. Like, I don't know what more you could want. They've got Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham Jr., a wide receiver. They've got Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt at running back. They've got 2 brand new offensive tackles. They've got a new tight end. They've in Austin Hooper for protection and pass catching, and David Njoku. Like, they've got all the offensive weapons they could ever need. So if they don't perform, then I don't even know what I'm going to do, but I'll be very upset. And that's why I think that Baker is – I saw a tweet and I retweeted it because I agreed that Baker is a dark horse pick for the MVP, not because he is the best quarterback in the league right now, but because he's got so many weapons around him and so much talent that he ought to be able to perform.
But just like Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson still exist. Like, I don't know.
Which is why he's not a front runner. He's not on anyone's big board. He's not in anyone's top 5. But a dark horse possibility that I would believe if he told me, hey, I come from the future and Baker won the MVP, I'd say I buy it.
All right, Baker Mayfield plus 3,300. So that's, you would win 33 on a dollar bet. And he is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What place do you think he's in actually on this list? I'll ask you.
We'll say 13.
Oh, good close. He's tied for 11th with Matt Ryan.
Whatever. I'm not too worried about it.
That looks right, though. How does Jared Stidham have the same odds as Matthew Stafford? That's a disgrace.
All right, I'm just hoping.
That's a disgrace.
To which one?
Well, hold on. What's more hilarious? Jared Stidham's 50-1. Kirk Cousins is 66-1. Jared Stidham has higher odds to win the MVP than Kirk Cousins.
Oh.
All right, I'm sorry. I'm having too much fun with this. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Gives me the okay to keep going. Continues laughing.
I can't believe that. I'm sorry.
I'll be content if football starts on time, frankly, NCAA and NFL. So,
look, as a man of future, hopefully applying to medical school this summer, the application opens in 3 days. What I will say about that, my taking courses in this area, is that when questions of football starting on time and colleges opening up in the fall gets brought up, I don't pay attention to any news or any science, and I just refuse to believe I will not get football in the fall.
I feel like we will have college football with no fans in attendance and no students on campus before we will cancel college football entirely. I think they'll just bring the football players to campus and practice and play games before they cancel everything.
Yeah. I agree because this. Go ahead.
Even if you don't have the income from filling up a stadium, like the TV deals and radio and whatever else comes along with it, makes so much money for the school.
Yeah, it's the TV deal that's the most important, frankly. Like the ticket revenue is not the main driver. It's probably not the fifth highest driver, I bet. Maybe it's like top five, but it's definitely not the first couple the highest things you think of for that. But yeah, I mean, I just want football, truly, and I don't really care what happens. And I also think this is a whole nother podcast because we're about to hit an hour.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're really going off on a tangent from the NFL draft. But
it's okay. We got all that. But I think maybe we'll do this in a little bit, depending on what they decide. Not a little bit, in a couple of weeks, if trying to fill some hours here. But if you looked at an athletic school's budget, a school's budget for athletics. Sorry, I said that wrong.
There's two sports that make money. That's it.
Yeah, it's football, basketball, men's. I'm sorry, women. Just the truth. And sometimes baseball does for some schools. I think sometimes. So, and the main driver of that is what?
So, or softball. Oregon softball probably makes money for them.
That's true. I mean, we could. I'm sure they have to post it if it's a public institution. So maybe we have to look at it. But but I know football drives a lot of sports, and I think, you could speak to this real quick before we have to get off the air here, is that the University of Cincinnati just canceled their men's soccer team, if I'm correct, right? It's gone.
They did. It was kind of a combination of coronavirus and a poor program. We had been such an awful men's soccer program for so long. We just fired our head coach. We're looking for a new head coach, and coronavirus hits, and I think they kind of said, screw it. Now is a good time to get rid of it. So I'm sad because you don't want to see sport go. But in terms of budget deficit or whatever, or in terms of replacing it with another sport, I hope they replace it with a wrestling team. Because UC doesn't have a lot of sports. But after that, I saw on my UC social media follows that they started posting budgets and talking about it and stuff. And that was when I kind of started to realize, wow, football makes a lot of money, basketball makes some money, and then everything else is just draining the losses, or I guess draining the gains from football so that they can be somewhat even.
Yeah, which I think it's football. It's great because they fund that sort of stuff. Like I know, for instance, UCF for us, we have our women's rowing team is either national champions or conference champions, 7 years in a row or something like that. And it's great. It's awesome. But without us being really good at football, or at least having some mild success from the Blake Bortles era, and then coming back, to now where there's a lot more money coming into the program, women's rowing wouldn't be there. And so it sounds dumb when when sometimes people will say it's dumb. It's like, well, college football is this, if it's this and that, it's whatever. But there's going to be, if there is no college football, which I really don't think there will be because of what we're talking about, there'll be some drastic decisions for that. And I think
there's going to be 2, maybe 3 other sports if there's not college football. Yep.
So, I feel like we could do a solid half hour, 45 minutes on that. Maybe we'll bring someone in and do that later on in the off season once I start running out of movies and stuff, because I have to do real things. I can't just watch movies all day to review, unfortunately.
It'd be cool if you could bring in an expert.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'll make some calls. Maybe I'll get Kirk Herbstreit on. Maybe I'll do that.
That's not what I meant. I meant a UCF student who happens to work in the athletics office. That's what I meant by an expert, okay?
We'll see. I know Milner works pretty high up in the BG soccer team, maybe. So maybe we can talk to him about it. But who knows? Bowling Green's lucky to get one win every year out of their football team. So I don't know if they'll understand.
Yeah. Might be a bad test subject.
We'll figure it out, though. We'll text about it. But yeah. All right, JJ, we have done an hour on this. So
yeah, let's wrap it up.
I think good job to the teams that drafted well. Sorry for the teams that didn't. And really, you know what? We don't know how good these players are going to be, so none of it really matters anyway. So thanks for wasting an hour with us.
We'll check back with you next year.
All right, stay safe, my friend. Keep working with your essential business engineering co-op thing.
I'll try. Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.